Hi, everybody. John Self. Good morning. Welcome to Career Live. It's Thursday, and every Thursday morning, we're here with you to talk about career information, give you any updates that might be available from the technology scene, and then talk about a few issues that I think are important to help you accelerate your job search, and in fact, provide some overarching concepts for you to handle your career. So, it is morning. I've been drinking coffee. I've been up for a while. I used to be a night person. I worked the 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift at the Houston Post as a crime writer and loved it. I mean, I loved being out at night. I loved having some of the midday to myself and do shopping and run errands and not have to worry about all the crowds in the malls. I don't have to look at dead bodies anymore, but that's another story. So we want to get started today, and our focus is going to be on some advantages you can achieve if you play your cards right. But first of all, you saw a couple of quotes earlier in the run-up to the presentation. The first one was the night scene of downtown Dallas. That's called After Hours. Every evening about 3 o'clock, we post an after hours quote, and again at 6:30. And then every morning at 6:30, and again around 9:30 or 10, we have the good morning quote. And so we find that there are a lot of people out there doing inspirational quotes, and that's great. Some of them are a little time worn. Some of the quotes are not accurate because they're not. Some of the people that they're attributed to actually didn't say them. For example, Einstein has taught about thoughts about what insanity is. He did not say that. Mark Twain's great quote about it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble, it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Mark Twain, that sounds like Twain, but then nobody could ever find in any of his writings or any of his text of his speeches where he ever said that. So, sometimes we're careful with those quotes. We look for quotes to help support you manage your career and manage your life and manage your professional growth. That's what our mission is, and so that's kind of how we pick quotes. And it's one of the great joys of this job is that every Saturday and Sunday I start curating quotes, going through my books, looking for people I haven't ever met before, and I'm going to show you a new book very briefly. It's kind of a racy title. This one was from a presentation that I sat in on last week. It's F the slides, and and then here I am going to have a lot of slides. But I do my slides slightly differently. Just a quick aside, I do them so in case you ask for copies of them, you don't have to kind of read between the lines. I try to put enough information on the slides so that they're just a mini workbook for you. Okay, so we talked about the two quotes, one in the morning and one in the evening. I hope you'll pay attention to that. They're on LinkedIn. They're on my johngself.com Facebook page. And we also post them on Threads. And we post them on, let's see, what else? Instagram. I shouldn't forget about Instagram. That's a platform that I don't have a lot of contact with. I need to, so I'm going to work on that. But I had about 3,500 followers on Twitter, now known as X. But quite frankly, that site and the way they're running it and the way they treat people, I'm sorry, it's just not consistent with my values. And I'm not talking about my political values. I'm talking about other values. And so I withdrew from that. I withdrew from that platform and went to Threads and building up a presence there. So we covered everything. One more announcement. Next week it's spring break. Every spring break, it just kind of cascades across the country, and so we will be off next week. But I will appreciate any feedback about our content and what you would like to see going forward as we really kind of move into the summer. So next week is an off week. I need some downtime to kind of refurbish my batteries and really work on content. And just know that we will be off next week. We haven't decided whether we're going to do any replays or not. We'll let you know about that probably tomorrow in the question time. And then if you're a member, you'll get certainly an update when we schedule replays. So, and if you're not a member, become a member. It's only $48 a month. And what happens is you get access to all the updated career job search information. We are not a job board. There are plenty of job boards, okay? There are some job boards that try to provide you support. We are more about the support and in sharing knowledge with you to help you expedite your search and trying to coach you to do a better job, with interviews, to do a better job with researching, to learn how to use the keywords and key phrases more effectively. That's what we're all about. So let's move on in and move forward with our presentation today. First of all, if you have questions, drop them in the chat box and we'll be happy to address them. We're not going to use your name. We may use your first name, we won't use your last name. So now, the big idea for this presentation is that there are a lot of people that are pushing back and saying, I've always done well with my career. I'm not going to let all this technology throw me off track. If I need a job, I'll just get out there and start, call on people that I know and I'll get a job. Well, That's true. If you have a good network, you will stand a better chance of getting a job. However, you need to be aware that the whole process now, which you would think would speed up because of active automation and AI, is actually because there's so many people looking for so few jobs. And people say, wait a minute, there's supposed to be a robust employment market. The jobs in management and in executive level positions have decreased during the pandemic, and they have not come back up yet. So a lot of companies realized that they had people in management and that they did not need. So there are fewer jobs. We talked about that yesterday in our presentation. There are fewer jobs, and in fact, a lot more candidates. So as companies continue to lay off strategically, I mean, it's really, really competitive. So now, instead of 4 to 6 months to find a job, it's 8, sometimes 14 months. And it really depends on the size of your network. And I want to tell you something. When you really understand how to customize your resume, you're not going to want to have to send out 100 online applications. And yet, a lot of people, that's exactly what they're having to do just to get one offer. 100 applications for one offer. If that doesn't set off alarm bells, you're just not thinking these things through. So push back on active career management. People say, I don't need to do that. Okay, that's great. The more people who say that, the better it is for you. When executives diss this concept, that they diss that this is a full-time responsibility or an ongoing responsibility, that's an opening for you to succeed. The fewer people that don't get it, the better opportunity for those that do. So when ignorance or arrogance propels this pushback, it fuels the gas of, I don't need to do this, I'm not going to do this. That isn't someone opening the door for you to succeed. And that's exactly how you have to look at it. Now, career management is a contact sport because unfortunately finding a job is a zero-sum game. You win, somebody else doesn't get the job, they lose. And so if you get laid off and somebody else that may not be as proficient as you, may not be as skilled as you lose, they win. And that happens when you don't build networks within your company, or you don't exceed what is expected of you in your normal job summary. You don't want to just meet the standard. You want to kind of go above it now. In an environment where you're going to have strategic layoffs all throughout the year. Google is going to be doing it. A lot of tech nut companies are going to be doing it. Why? Because Wall Street wants higher returns, greed, and companies want to be sure that they can fund their R&D for the future, and they're not going to be able to do it like Google Ads is not producing the revenue that it used to. And so now, instead of funding their R&D on growth, they're having to fund their R&D from cash flow. And that means they're going to be watching their headcount very carefully. Contract management is a contact sport because it is all about you winning and somebody else losing. Now, you don't want to be arrogant with that attitude. You just want to embrace it, understand it. I have to do a better job than John next to me or Barbara in the next desk over. I have to exceed what is expected of me, or I may be laid off. If I want a new job, I'm going to have to beat out probably 100 to 150 other applicants to get to the table. It's a zero-sum game, and if you don't have a network, and if you don't have a brand out there, you're going to have a real challenging time. Now, be focused, be assertive, and I think you need to focus on advancing your career. Now, why, if I do a good job, why do I have to focus on that? Why don't I just focus on doing a good job and let that take care of things? Technology. What does that mean? It means that if you're looking for another job in another company, they're using, a lot of these companies are using high-speed scanners to go through LinkedIn profiles, hundreds and hundreds every minute, and using a job-specific algorithm, they're able to then find people who are passing, didn't even know the job existed, and ask them, would you be interested? And it's almost, and some search firms use this, and they actually have letters with the search firm partner's photograph. They explain who they are, who they're with. If you have an interest in this job, click the link below and submit your resume. You better be sure that you're using keywords and phrases when you do that submission, because they're using applicant tracking systems too. Not all firms do, but when you see that on LinkedIn, yes, they are. Now, advancing your career, you have to be focused, you have to be assertive, and by focusing on your career, that means you're being very intentional. And to advance your career and find a better job, this is hard work. This is not some sit around the campfire, kumbaya, with somebody playing the guitar badly. This is really about you being very intentional every week, every month, every quarter, every year, to be sure that you're building a good brand and that your performance in your job is a cornerstone of building that good brand. Now, when I say that it's a zero-sum game, there are, I'm going to use the title of a book that was also a title of a Harvard article that has a certain word in it that you may not like, so close your ears if you don't. It's called the No Asshole Rule, and that there is actually a book by that name. Now, this is not about destroying your competitor, running them down, verbally abusing them. That's not what we're talking about here. This is not about destroying your competitor. This is about understanding and taking advantage of their mistakes. Okay, leverage. This is about understanding what the employer wants. This is about understanding, what your strengths are. This is all about understanding how you nurture your brand and how to interview. So you don't have to worry about dissing your competitor. This is not one of those situations. It is about knowing the employer, and you have to understand what are their needs. Why are they doing this search? Did somebody leave? Did somebody fail to perform? Is this a new position? Then leverage your knowledge, okay, and connect your skills, and tell them about your skills using stories to engage them and make it very compelling. When you are very compelling and you're smiling and you're engaging, what does that do? That fosters likability, and likability will lead to trust. And those are two big issues in the employment process. Recruiters and hiring managers hire people they like and they trust. And so how you interview, you have to build that in that period of time. So one compelling question is, what do you want your brand to be? Well, first of all, you need to understand your values. What are your strengths and what are your values? And that's just foundational to understanding what your brand needs to be. The third thing is that you have to really have a reputation, not a brand, but a reputation for performance. And that is meeting or exceeding. And I would encourage you to exceed what they expect. These are really important questions, and they're central to building a brand. And then what you want to do is you want to talk about, you want all of your posts, you want all of your presentations that you make to reflect your brand and reflect your values. So nobody, when you go do a presentation, even to managers in your own organization, or to a regional conference or a national conference, there's no doubt when you leave that stage that people understand who you are, what you stand for, and what you've accomplished, what you're telling them about, that you are a thought leader. So you can't just assume that's going to happen. Most people are just scared bejesus when they have to present, okay? So you really need, build a lot of confidence if you know who you are, you know what you stand for, you know what your value brand proposition is, your value brand statement. And that's really that's so important. Then to be able to be precise, be professional, and to be compelling in your presentation. You certainly want to be intentional. I think that that is one of the biggest things that people don't do. They are not intentional with career planning, career management. They are not intentional sometimes about doing their job, building networks internally and externally, and they're not really intentional about the whole concept of, unless you're a household word on the tongues of everybody in your industry, there are so many people looking for jobs. So you can't assume that just because you did a great job, that's going to propel you to your next better job. unless you promote yourself, and you must be extremely, very intentional about that. People, one of the things that I harp about, and I apologize, but good cow, it is one of the best ways for you to achieve an advantage, not only in your career market, but if you're in a specific job search, it's the best way to achieve an advantage. All right, and that is that you have to have a written plan. And people say, well, why write it down? It's just going to change. Well, oh goodness. Do you think if some major company, if they had that same approach about their strategic planning, that they would be as successful as they are? No, they wouldn't. Why wouldn't that make you more successful? Here's the sort of an issue that people don't really understand. When you write something down, okay, it is more important to you. It requires more discipline. If it's just up here in your brain, I guarantee you it's not going to be focused. It's not going to evolve. You need to write this down and be intentional. People who have written plans do a better job in their career and achieving success. So I would really encourage you to do that. That is part of being intentional. Now, here is the big takeaway for today, okay? The overwhelming majority of executives and managers, the overwhelming majority of the people that you're competing against do not have a written plan, okay? And if you want to differentiate yourself from the unwashed masses, step one, have a written plan. Understand your value. What is your value brand statement? What is your mission in life with your career? What are your values related to fulfilling your mission? What are your strengths? And how are you going to explain your strengths in a compelling way? What do you want to be ultimately in your career? We have something in our coaching process, and if you're a career member, your career community member, $48 a month, you can actually learn how to do all this stuff because we have it in video and audio lessons online. And you have unlimited access on demand. And then we also have weekly live coaching like these sessions. And let me tell you something. I spent 27 years as an executive recruiter, and a lot of people came in because they needed a job or they thought this was a step up, and they really have it. They are really adept at telling me what they've accomplished, but then they want me to figure out if you can do it for another company. Why don't you bridge it for the recruiter? Why don't you help them by telling them, I can do this? If you have a plan, if you understand your value, if you understand your mission and your values in that mission statement, if you know where you're going in your career, you are going to be more focused and you will be more successful. I think that is just absolutely critical for you to understand. And again, the majority of people don't do that. So if you do it, you're in the minority, and if you do it well, if you perform well, and if you learn how to tell your story in a compelling way, and you know where you want to go with your life, it's going to change. Hell, I started out as a crime writer and a police reporter, and then as an editor, and finished up as a crime writer and investigative reporter. I had no idea that I was going to be in hospital PR when I graduated from university. And I had no idea that I would be the first director of a helicopter ambulance program. Being a crime writer and knowing anything about helicopters, much less healthcare, my gosh, when I took that job on, I probably recognized the hospital 3 out of 5 times. So I had no idea that was going to happen. And so my career, I was extraordinarily lucky. I was the national marketing manager for the aviation company within a year. I hit the right niche, and it was very successful. But I was successful because, number one, I was very focused on what I was doing at the time, and I exceeded what was expected of me. And the third thing is I got lucky. And what fueled the luck? Charles Wesley says that if a man is on fire with enthusiasm, people will come from all over to watch him burn. So do not put a bushel basket on your enthusiasm. Don't think that enthusiasm is something silly that you want to kind of mask and cover up. Enthusiasm is what connects you, helps you connect with people. I was not a great salesperson. I didn't know a lot about helicopters. I knew enough to get by. I didn't know a lot about the details of healthcare operations. I knew enough to get by. But I was so enthusiastic about what I was doing. And that's been part of my career. One of the reasons, that I think that my career, it should be spelled L-U-C-K, because I didn't have a plan. And in today's environment, the chances for me to have the success I had are almost nil, okay? Because what happens is you want to have enthusiasm, but the applicant tracking system scanning computers kind of filter that out. It doesn't respond to enthusiasm. So what you have to do is have a great resume. You have to have a real focused resume for what that job is. And then when you do get in front of a recruiter, you do get in front of a human being, then you have to let your enthusiasm for what they're doing and how you feel you can add value to their organization, you got to let that shine. So I want to finish up today by talking about the career boot camp we're having in April on the 27th. We have not set a time yet, so if you have a preference, let me know. For members, you'll have access to this on an ongoing basis online. In non-members, it'll be up for 2 or 3 days following the boot camp. There is no charge for the boot camp. It's 3 hours of in-depth, very focused training. Excuse me. My Claritin has not kicked in yet, and it's, as you know, allergy season. We had real cold weather yesterday. It's cool today. Tomorrow it'll be 75 or 80. Go figure. Okay, back to the boot camp. We're excited about this, and the reason we're excited about this is because it's going to allow you to get more in-depth training and more in-depth information about how to put together your resume, how to find those keywords in a job summary, how to look for the key phrases, how to redo your resume so those words and those phrases are incorporated. I thought that when I started and heard about that, started educating myself about scanners when I was a recruiter, I thought, well, hell, this is not very long. It doesn't really affect me because we don't use them. Except we did use Indeed and iHire sometimes to identify possible candidates, and they use ATS. So, it was extremely interesting to learn about this. And then we saw it being more widely deployed among businesses. Today, more than 90% of U.S. businesses either have an applicant tracking system, scanning system in their house, or they contract with a service provider that does it for them, or they use something like ZipRecruiter, iHire, Indeed. Okay, those are variations of applicant tracking systems, and so it was really amazing, how widespread it is. So we're going to talk about that in the boot camp. We're also going to talk about strategic planning for your career and how to lay that out. We're going to really dig deep into interviewing. We also have a couple of special guests. T.D. Smyers, who is one of the leading not-for-profit executives in Northeast Texas and now is an executive coach, is going to be here to talk about making a career transition and transitioning from looking for a job into being successful in that job. TD has a company called Bold Leaders. He's a really remarkable man, was a very distinguished graduate from the Naval Academy, was a captain and a commander, and commanded several groups in the Navy, and I met him when he was a candidate for one of my searches. And I really thought he was the best guy for the search. The board chose somebody who was a more traditional candidate, which is good, and he was very successful. But what that other person didn't have was the deep ties to the community, and TD understood that, and he's going to be talking about this. The other person, we're not sure they're going to be able to be live, is Ron Thomas. Ron is a remarkable person who started out from a small, I think of South Carolina town. He has a great story. He's a great story. He's a great friend. And I learned so much from him every Friday morning because he has this thing called the CEO Focus Series, and it's live streams from Dubai at 8 a.m. So Ron will be probably recorded, but we'll be talking to you about his story and how he moved from the East Coast and being the Chief Human Resource Officer for Martha Stewart, and how he ended up in Dubai by way of Saudi Arabia. He's a really interesting man, and we'll be talking about his career, how he's been successful in his career, and we'll also be happy to, he'll be addressing some questions about how to become a successful expat working overseas. Now, people say, oh man, I don't want to do that. Listen, if you can find a great job overseas, that's better than sitting on the sideline or settling for something that does not allow you to fully develop and use your potential. And it may get to the point, the economy and the job situation at the executive and management level may get to the point where that becomes a more widely accepted career path strategy. But he's going to be here to talk about some of those issues as well. So I hope this has been helpful information to you today. We really enjoy having the opportunity to visit with you. It's almost like doing the quotes. I get to meet all these interesting people through finding their quotes and learning more about them. So I hope you'll pay attention to the quotes, watch for more announcements on the Career Boot Camp, and we're now off next week for spring break. We'll be back the following week with Lunch and Learn and office hours, along with CareerLIVE and questions throughout the week. So thanks so much, everybody. We really enjoyed being with you today, and we'll see you in a week.